fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.
Hey, good morning everyone. Frank Valkyrie here. Welcome to the channel. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for spending some time with me on this rainy Monday here in Amsterdam. And as you know, and if you know me, you know that we do here a little bit of reactions and music and other stuff. And today I want to do a little talk about something that I like talking about, which we usually do. So today I want to talk about Bob Lazar. A few weeks ago I followed the podcast of Joe Rogan. He had Bob Lazar as guest on, and it was truly fascinating. And if you don't know who Bob Lazar is, just Google it for a second and just get a little update on this fascinating character.
A local scientist who's worked at Groom Lake
said to be where top secret weapons systems have been tested over the years.
He has asked that his identity be shielded.
Exactly what's going on up there?
What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. Physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence.
My name's Bob Lazar. I'm known for working at a classified base and reverse engineered alien spacecraft.
It went all over the world.
I first learned of Bob Lazar in the late 90s, and of course, you read on some magazines specialized on UFO and all that kind of stuff, because this dude came out with the fantastical story that back in the 80s, 89 or something, he was working in this facility called S4 next to Area 51 or around there. And of course those claims were completely crazy in a way, like for all the people fascinated with the universe and the possibility of other life out there. This immediately ignited the imagination and the hope and everything, of course, but also skepticism, because after all, this guy came out with the story that America, the US, is in possess of 9 craft, not just one, 9 craft from other planets, from somewhere else, from other species. And that claim alone is fantastical and crazy. So he's a scientist, specializes seems on propulsion engine, and he was working in this very hermetic environment in this area S4, where he wasn't given the full picture but very compartmentalized type of scenario, where him and his small team with his superior whatever was working on this specific craft that he saw, and he had the possibility to sort of like understand a little bit what it was and how it worked. Apparently it seems it works with some kind of anti-gravitational force and propulsion, which to me, when I hear the explanation, kind of makes sense, but I have absolutely no idea if we are even close to stuff like that on this planet or understanding. What I understand that it makes sense that if you have something like that, you will try to back engineer it so that we could use the technology. So in that respect, it makes a lot of sense. But the claim is fantastical and crazy. So he's been giving the same talk more or less for 30 years, and this is the fascinating part, because now that I saw the Joe Rogan interview on the podcast, it really brought back a lot of those things that I already knew, but also sort of underline the possibility that what he's talking probably is true, or at the same time, because you put on the balance the fact that this guy went all in on this story for so many years, but apparently doesn't seem even the type of guy that wanted to be in the spotlight to begin with. To me, it's still a little bit convoluted why he was working on this craft, and then all of a sudden he was sent away, and then he decided to talk about it. Maybe I have to look into that a little bit better, because to me it didn't make a lot of sense why all of a sudden this guy stopped working on the craft, and also the fact that all of a sudden all his data disappeared from where he studied, and also where he was having a master degree in science or physics, whatever. So it seems like this guy had no past for whatever reason. And then in this new documentary, which is on Netflix, sheds a little bit of light on those issues, and also shows that in fact this guy was a scientist and he was working at Los Alamos where he said he was working, because this magazine appeared of him creating a jet bicycle, and it was mentioned in that he was a scientist working at this facility where they denied that he was working at. So very fascinating. If anything, this documentary and also the podcast really brings back the story and the story timeline, and it gives credibility in the way that he kept the same story for so long. So somebody could argue, you know, when you repeat a story so many times in the same way, you either remember it in a sort of like memorizing way, but I also believe that actually doesn't matter how good you memorize something or you repeat it. If it's fake, all of a sudden when you go through to so much scrutiny, people are gonna find some loopholes. And here, when I heard the podcast and watched the documentary again, everything seemed going even a little bit deeper and just remaining on the same line without really loopholes or anything. And that alone is fascinating. It's fascinating and brings me to my personal point here, which I always give the benefit of the doubt to a person coming forward with a story like that, because most likely things are much more complex than we think they are, especially when it comes down to security and the military and governments and all of those kind of things, acquisition of new technology from who knows where, and I don't know, spying. So that kind of stuff, it's probably much more complicated than we're shown or we know. So I give the benefit of the doubt to those stories. But the thing that really fascinates me the most is the possibility that what he's saying is true. When I was watching the documentary after listening to the podcast and all the interview, and this guy seemed, you know, like from a psychological standpoint, you look at this guy and he seemed like honest. He seems honest. He seems like that a guy that is not there just for publicity, or that he doesn't want any publicity. And then you also wonder, why would somebody go on for such a long time with the same story if you're not making a ton of money out of it? I don't know if he's making any money. It doesn't seem that he's making money. If he is, let me know. I'm curious to know, because that's what I was thinking. If you don't capitalize on this kind of story, right, in a really big way, what's the point of being considered a fool for 35 years or 30 years of your life or more, you know, by coming out with an incredible story like this? At least if you don't have some kind of mental health problems, you know, that sort of propels you into this spiral craziness because you don't notice it. That would explain everything. But to me, the guy seems pretty sane, and therefore you really wonder why somebody would endure, keep saying the same story if, you know, it's not true. You're just gonna, also the legacy you leave behind, it's gonna be like completely a disaster if it turns out to be a gigantic hoax. You know what I mean? So for anybody to keep up such a hoax for such a long time, it seems completely nuts. But then again, you know, like again, I give the benefit of the doubt. Personally, I am more prone now. I have the tendency to believe him more than I did in the past. When I saw the first interviews and also the original VHS, you know, that he was giving the interview, he has given this interview many times, and I think I watched many of them, and I was truly fascinated by it. But then again, you know, you have nothing to go by, so you cannot disprove or confirm what he's saying. So it just becomes again in the ether, and it's left to you to sort of embrace that thought or not. This time, after the podcast and the new documentary on Netflix, I really have to say my feeling shifted a little bit towards more believing him, and that's the thing that really scared me and blew my mind the most, because all of a sudden I was sitting there, and And instead of looking at Bob Lazar, listening to him as if I was listening to somebody reading a science fiction novel, which I love, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, he's talking the truth. Is this possible that we have technology from another planet, such advanced technology, and they're working on it, they're studying it? And that means that there are other species coming from the outside here, and there has been contact. And it just immediately like changed the perception of my own reality. And then of course, you know, like you have to wake up and do your things, but at the same time it goes like, wow, all that sort of burden of not knowing or being unsure which one are the potentiality or the limits of the human minds and understanding of science and physics, all of a sudden it seems to open up a completely new chapter. All the things that you always wondered about or fantasized by watching incredible science fiction movies, all of a sudden they seem a little bit more real. And it's just incredible. That thought is just incredible. So for once, I really hope that, you know, this is not a scam. I really hope that this is the truth, also because it seems completely crazy that somebody will keep a hoax for such a long time. And of course, I give it the benefit of the doubt in both directions, because it's, you know, only his knowledge and what he's saying, and even though it seems compelling what he's saying and how he's saying it, it makes you believe that it's possible, but still would be nice to have sort of like physical confirmation of seeing something that will extinguish and erase absolutely any doubt for anybody. It's like, you know, I'm seeing like a plane now going down there because the airport is close to my house, so I see the airplanes going down and I see its shape, I see it the way it's flying, I see the shine of the light reflecting on his fuselage and so on and so forth. And the same way would be nice to witness something, a species, a craft from somewhere else where every doubt could be extinguished forever. So the only thing we have now is the fantastical affirmation, the fantastical story of Bob Lazar. And even though now I believe it more, I really hope that soon we're gonna have more to work with, or a final proof of all that we have taught and, you know, like and hoped to see in our lifetime. So anyway, this is a little talk for today. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know about if you knew Bob Lazar's story, and if you do, leave some comments, and if you have new videos and stuff regarding these things, send it over. You know that I'm a nerd and I love it. And always spread love, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.